We're back!
Yes! Hiatus is over. Can you believe it?
It's been like 4 months since we recorded a new episode.
It is very true, but is that because you've been busy?
We've both been busy, I'm
yeah,
pretty sure.
I guess so. We've been busy.
But,
wait, we have a new person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Excellent.
Elisa, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hello, I'm Elisa. I'm a UX, UI, and product designer.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's see.
And you are?
Oh, yeah. I'm Charles. And that's Trey. And together we make
Eternally Bored.
Excellent.
All right, so today on Eternally Bored, we're discussing gateway games. We'll discuss what makes a good gateway game, and basically, you know, how you select a game that can draw in your friends, like you're trying to convert them to become gamers. And we have a new convert. We have Elisa, who's like super addicted to gaming now, and she can kind of give us her take on like what got her into it. And then we'll also list our top 3 favorite gateway games. But before we do all that, shout out to our network, Punchboard Media.
Punchboard Media.
Yes. And our featured affiliate this week is the Dirtbags of Holding. Dirtbags of Holding is basically an RPG podcast. Stranger Things ringtone. Yes. And a squeaky toy. No squeaky toys while we're podcasting, Tuxedo.
Yes. Tuxedo's here to say hello.
They are an RPG podcast who basically they play. It's a play podcast, so they don't like talk about RPGs. They play RPGs, and you know it's basically like a comedy show. You just like enjoy the game with them. It's really good. They have a great rapport. They also do some other episodes, like they also did a Gen Con recap recently. So they do, you know, all sorts of things, and they play tons of different RPGs, so it's not like the same RPG every week. So definitely check them out if you like RPG, or you like comedy, or you like both. And yeah, so on to the topic du jour. What are the elements of a good gateway game?
All right.
We gotta get the squeaky toy away from him.
Killing me!
I might not take this out of the video, but I'm definitely gonna edit it out of the audio.
Alright, leave it from the audio. Okay.
YouTube guys, sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But we're back. Alright, so elements of a good gateway game. Charles, why don't you start?
Alright, I think the first thing is when you're dealing with a good gateway game, you're dealing with new people. So rules brevity is the #1 thing that you want to have on your gateway game that's just out the box. I mean, you can't start someone. There are simple games that for whatever reason have a ton of rules. Your best gateway games usually are going into, you know, you might have to explain rules for 5 minutes at best, and from there on you're good to go.
Right. I would agree. I think that's the #1 thing. Lisa, do you agree as well, or do you have a different...
I agree, although for me, the #1 thing would be that the game needs to be fun.
Huh, yeah. I guess...
Fun?
Yeah, it needs to be fun. I mean, you know, people can handle a little complexity as long as it's not overboard, but
yeah.
if it's fun to play and it's something that they can actually get better at, then yeah.
That is a good point. Like, I would say if it's a gateway game and you're trying to draw them into gaming, then it can be at least a little bit complex. I mean, the #1 gateway game that I'm sure we'll talk about a lot is Settlers of Catan, and that is not the simplest game. You know, there's quite a few rules, there's quite a few exceptions to rules, and you know, little things you have to remember. So, you know, there's some complexity there. So you can have some complexity, but you know, if they can't handle like Settlers of Catan, they're never gonna be a gamer anyway. So like, you can play family games with them, you know, simple party games, things like that. But like, if there's someone who has any hope of becoming a hobby gamer, then something like Settlers of Catan is fine.
Right. And I would say like that's more of an exception because it's sort of Settlers of Catan is an exception to my second most important thing, which is length of game. And I've always felt that a good gateway game, especially if you're dealing with someone who's new, fresh in the gaming, needs to be somewhere in the 30 to 45 minute range, if not shorter. Yeah. Because you know, you want them, if they feel like they're not doing as well, to be able to just say, hey, well, we're almost over. You only got 1 or 2 more rounds and you're out.
We'll fight through it.
We fight through it. And you never know, because I've had some games that are great gateway games that just were not for certain people. And then other games, they were like, okay, this is my type of game. And it, you know, not every person with a gateway is going to be, with a gateway game is not going to be as receptive to each one. That's why we have so many different ones. So.
Yeah. Awesome, yeah. Any other elements y'all can think of? besides
Yes.
length and simplicity and
So
fun?
simple. But another thing I thought of as well was that they should be able to relate to the game or something that they're familiar with. So, for example, thematic games. So, I was just starting to game, and for example, the first game you and I played was Star Wars Rebellion, which is not a gateway game, but
It's a gateway game. It's a gateway game for Lisa. So.
I love Star Wars. I'm familiar with that, and I was like, oh wow, okay, cool. I'll play that, and so something like that. People are familiar with Star Wars or Game of Thrones or whatever. Then they feel a little bit more comfortable to be like, well, maybe I can try to understand it if I already know the characters. I already know the story.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, having that thematic connection can increase their interest in the game. Even I have had people who are not gamers at all, but like they'll find out that I have a Game of Thrones game or a Lord of the Rings game or Star Wars, and they'll be like, "What? I love Star Wars!"
Yeah.
And like,
I really want to do it right now.
like they get super excited when they find out that there's like good board games, not like Star Wars Monopoly, but like there's good board games based off an IP that they really enjoy. So
I will say this. Star Wars Episode 1 Monopoly is one of the best Monopoly boards ever made. But I digress.
Charles is eternally boards Monopoly defender. Every group has to have one, and Charles is ours.
But it has like slots on the game board where you put the property deed, so when you buy the property, you just pull it out of the game board. It's awesome. Anyway,
and
sorry.
I hope this is the only time Monopoly comes up in this episode.
Well,
All right.
to be honest, everyone that is not a gamer that I talk to and I say, do you want to play a game? And they would always say, you mean like Monopoly?
Like Monopoly, right?
And I'm just like, oh no. Oh,
Yeah,
no.
it's like, no, we promise, there's better games. Gaming has evolved since the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank God.
But, bringing up classic games, I mean, I do think, like, the third thing for all the gateway games is to think of it from the teacher's perspective. And you need a game that has what I call the Othello principle, which is a minute to learn, a lifetime to master. A lot of the best gateway games are also fun for the teacher involved. So, there's more nuances, more layers they can build on. They might be simple, but you have different ways to go. That's sort of not just Catan's niche, but, other really good gateway games that we'll talk about later. And Othello as well.
So we've talked a lot about good gateway games. Let's talk about bad ones. What are some bad gateway games or bad gateway experiences you've had?
I have one off the bat. So.
Go ahead.
All right. So for me, Splendor is not the greatest gateway game. And I know a lot of people out there like Splendor, and it is very simple to learn. The problem is that it's solved. There's like clearly good and bad choices in the game, and it's not really... It's fun for people the first time, but it's the opposite experience for a teacher. It's like, I know exactly what to do. I can't experiment. And even if I do, it's sort of like I'm playing suboptimally. And you want a gateway game that you can just, even no matter how many times you played it, you can still get beat by a new player.
Right.
As opposed to Splendor where you just can't.
So that might be another thing we should add to the good category is like you probably need some level of randomness in a gateway game because that way then new players will have a chance. And that's one of the reasons maybe Catan has been successful because if you get a good run on your resources in Catan, you can win even if you have an inferior strategy, right? So I think like some random factor actually helps gateway games because the newbies don't feel like they're just getting slaughtered. Whereas like Splendor, like they could be like, oh, I want to build an engine. I'll buy a whole bunch of cards from the top row. And you're like, maybe you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It kind of falls, so that is randomness, but it also falls into like difficulty level, right? Where possible versus impossible kind of thing, especially if you're a new gamer and you're trying to understand the game. And there's a lot going on, and you're trying to understand the mechanics, and you're trying to understand how the other players are playing, and the goal of the game.
Yeah.
Like, if that's not clear, then, that's a bad gateway game, right? If you don't understand the objective,
right,
or what it is you're trying to accomplish, then...
I think as gamers, like, we have to understand limitations because, like, what's simple for us is not simple for other people. Like, I try to teach my family viticulture because I'm like, this is one of the simplest worker placement games there is, and they like Stone Age. I was like, if they can handle Stone Age, they can handle viticulture, because I don't feel like it's a huge leap in complexity.
Magnitude.
But I don't feel like it's a huge leap in complexity. They felt like they didn't know what the heck was going on. Like, they didn't understand aging the wines. They didn't understand like how to use the cards right. Like, they didn't understand the day versus night phase.
Well,
like,
especially with viticulture, it has the different seasons as well, which I think also adds another complexity to that.
They were super lost, and we basically had to abandon the game like almost at the end. But like, even though we were almost done, they were just like giving up. That like they could not wrap their heads around it, and yeah.
And his family loves to drink. That's the incredible part. I mean, we should have another outtake about last weekend at the wedding. But their family, if they give them an open bar, then they're going to be going, and they would have tried every single wine that you can make in viticulture gladly.
It's possible they were having mimosas, and this was a Christmas morning, so that that didn't help. The mimosas did not help. So that's another thing. Setting, right? Like. Teach your gateway. Choose a gateway game for the setting. Don't bring Cells of Catan to a bar with your friends who have never gamed. Like, bring something even simpler than Cells of Catan. I think if you're, if it's their first time playing something at that level of complexity.
I would say the next thing is that the entire genre of deck building is a bad gateway game, even if it's like very simple. In what the level of deck building that you're doing is just like a travesty when you try to like teach people how you're supposed to build a deck, and you constantly have to seem to
unless they have a magic background.
Unless they have a magic background, but then we're already talking about a more advanced gamer anyway. Someone who's paid money for it.
Right. Yeah. Exception maybe for Star Realms, because Star Realms is one of the simplest games that I've ever played. So, but in general, I agree. Like, if they haven't had really experience with games, then like asking them to construct a deck and like here's a multitude of options of things you can add to your deck, that's probably super overwhelming.
And it might be, I also think that PvP. I mean, because Star Realm is player versus player, and it's only 2 players. That's a good. What's the best way? I don't know if it's a good gateway, but it's a good way to incrementally build upon someone's skill. So I guess it is a good gateway because you can keep on playing with them, and they can become like a competent level of challenge, very similar to how chess players work, and how you progress up in the ranks as you play a 2-player game. But I don't know.
And we had another episode about like teaching games where like. We talked a lot about you should give like a certain level of help to new players, unless they don't want it. Obviously, you kind of have to read the situation, but most new players are welcoming to new help, especially if they haven't played a lot of board games. So definitely help them out in that way. Speaking of which, I think another I know we're supposed to be talking about bad games, but another point I want to point out is co-op games are generally really good gateways. Unless you over alpha them, so like don't over alpha, like let them actually play the game. I know you're like gritting your teeth, like this is a really bad move, and you just want to like give them all the advice. But you gotta hold yourself back and let them actually play and make decisions. Let the cards fall as they may.
I put co-op on my good gateway game list as well, specifically because it encourages a feel-good winning kind of. Thought rather than a take that or a defeated feeling, and you're winning together, basically, right?
Yeah.
But the other big important part about co-op games is that it helps newbies understand when they're playing with other players what their strategies are. And that really helps, right? When you're first starting out, you don't know the game mechanics, you don't know what kind of strategy like you should be doing. So it helps when it's a co-op game and you can actually talk to each other. Now, just like you said, it's up to them if they're actually going to, listen to the more experienced gamers. But going back to the bad stuff, another one that I thought about was what would make a bad gateway game is if it's out of a person's comfort zone. So what I mean is by like... Some people are very shy, they don't want to talk so much. They definitely don't want to reveal anything embarrassing. And another game that I played not too long ago was a person had to put on a blindfold. For a lot of people, that can be very uncomfortable, right? Especially if
when I dream. Excellent.
Yes.
Oh, that's a...
Yes, so that can be uncomfortable for a lot of people, especially if they're new to gaming and they're like, oh God, I don't know what's going on, and now all of a sudden I can't see anything. I have no idea what they're saying about me, or
and you're really on the spot. You're blindfolded,
Yes.
and you're
It's-
responsible for making the
it's
decisions when you're blindfolded.
very uncomfortable kind of pressure. So for me, it's like I wouldn't do that to a new gamer. I would definitely try to stay within people's comfort zones.
However, making everyone put on a silly headband with words on top.
Headbands is a great
Excellent
gateway.
gateway game. Excellent gateway game.
Well, okay, so that's an exception in a way because everybody has it on,
Right,
yeah.
Versus one person wearing a blindfold, or one person on the spot having to reveal an embarrassing info that other people don't have to say, right? So everybody's wearing the headband and everybody's trying to figure out at the same time. So that's a little different.
Oh no! I mean, it's a great game. It's group embarrassment is a great way to bring more people in. I know this. We have played headbands at Cafe Express a couple of times, and man, if you thought we looked like dorks before, get ready. But more people were interested. They came up to us. So
Oh yeah.
advertise it.
So I just have one more thing for bad gateway games. Choose a fun game, because there are a lot of simple games that are just not fun. Like, an example I would use is Sushi Go. Like, the base game, like, not Sushi Go Party, which I actually think is a great game, but Sushi Go, the regular version, is just so, like, simple, but not in the good way. It's just simple as in it's dull, right?
Yeah.
So you want a simple game, but you also want the game to be, like, interesting.
Yeah, and I also think Machikoro falls into that, maybe.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I hate that game, but...
And Shifting Realms as well. It's a very simple game, very easy to understand. Introduces new players to area control a little bit, moving across the board, collecting resources, but it's very flat. I feel like something was missing with that game. Like it doesn't actually. It doesn't progress somehow.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds like you got burned by that one.
well, it was a little flat. It had potential, but it was a little flat. It was just.
I actually haven't played that game. I think it's a new game, isn't it?
It's a new game, yes.
All right. Any other bad things before we move on to our next?
Oh no, you can go.
All right. So, two other things I wanted to talk about. Often abstract games aren't really considered gateway games, and I wonder why the gaming community doesn't really consider abstract games, except for Azul, which is for some reason an exception. But why do y'all think that you don't consider checkers to be a gateway game?
Because it's kind of boring, but I think it also falls into line with not really knowing what the objective of the game is, or it can be that there's not really an exciting goal.
Yeah. Yeah, so abstract games often are considered boring. Like, most of them, again, for some reason, Azul is like an exception to this rule. Nothing against Azul, I think it's a fun game, but
I don't even know if it's really. I mean, it's an okay introduction game. I would consider it more of a medium weight game.
it's pretty mathy for a gateway game.
I think the main thing with abstractions is like we're taught abstract games from the beginning. So the game when we were talking about this in pre-production that came up to me was Ingenious. Because Ingenious is sort of like an abstract game, and it fits in the same sort of category as chess and checkers. It's just dealing with colors and points. So I'm like, okay, this game is good, but it is very mathy. I mean, and at the same time, people can pick it up and lose, because you're going to lose your first game of Ingenious.
So maybe it's losing that thematic connection.
Yeah.
That can draw some gamers in, whereas like they could not really like the strategy of it, but like still find the theme interesting. And I've had a lot of like gamers that I've introduced to games, like they'll get really into the theme. They don't really care about the mechanics, right? But the theme draws them in.
Yeah.
And like Pandemic as well.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of success with introducing that to new gamers, and they love it, right? Because
it's not dry.
It's not dry, no. They feel like they're accomplishing something, which I think is important as well, right? And you're working together. It's a co-op game, and yeah.
I mean, I think it's stupidly dry, but that's fine. I know I'm in the minority on Hanabi. I mean, not Hanabi. Pandemic. Yeah.
Okay, but here's one thing. All right, and I thought about this was a question that I came up with was, wouldn't Pandemic count as one of those things if you evaluate a person, you're like, we're going to skip intro games altogether. Let's go to Pandemic or something like that. Or
I mean, it's simple. It's a simple game. It's quick to teach, right? I mean, I think it's a good gateway game.
Yeah, I think Pandemic is a good gateway game, even though I personally do not like it. But you have to watch the alpha thing, because that's like, Pandemic is the quintessential alpha gamer problem game, because it's such a simple game. You can easily plan out your move and then plan out everyone else's move. And if they're all new and they're not good at gaming yet, they're not as experienced as you, you can just run right over them, and then they don't play the game, because you're just like, oh, don't do that. Do this instead, it's better, and then explain why it's better. And yeah, of course, you're probably right, but then they just didn't play. You played for them.
Oh, one more thing. What do you think about party games?
Yeah. So party games, again, aren't really considered gateway games by a lot of the gaming community, because, and I think for this one, it's because everyone plays them. Like you go to any party, like even if there's people there that don't play games at all, but they'll still play like Telestrations or Headbands or whatever. So I think
Crabs Against Humidity.
Yeah.
Wait, what's it called? Oh, Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
Their party games are fun, but in my opinion, they don't build on strategy or gaming skills. So.
Right. So like you're not getting them into the hobby. You're just like doing a social activity at that point.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other points about gateway games before we move to our top 3?
Top 3.
All right, let's do it. Top 3 gateway games. I have several honorable mentions before we get started. I'm going to self-promote Harvest. I think Harvest, 2 pages of rules, a farming theme, which a lot of people like, and I've actually taught it to a lot of non-gamers and had quite a bit of success. So, check out Harvest by TMG. Patchwork is, I think, a really good 2-player abstract game, and people seem to really get into it. It is a strategy, but it builds on like Tetris, which everybody has played at some point in their life.
Not to mention, there are 3 other games after Patchwork in the what do you call it? 4-part? In the 4-part episode.
There's 3 other games.
There's a trilogy based on Patchwork, so you can never stop.
No, there's 4, because there's Patchwork, the simpler version of Patchwork.
Oh yeah, that's right. So Patchwork is the intro, and 4 other games.
Yeah. Hanabi, but probably someone's going to talk about that. Isle of Skye, which I think replaced Carcassonne, at least for me, as like your intro tile laying game. It's like Carcassonne, but I think it has that added level of interest. There's more variability, and it's not just about farms, whereas like high level Carcassonne play is all about like fighting over the farms. King Domino, which is one of my favorite games to introduce to people. I still find that game fascinating. I don't know why. It's like such a simple game, but I just like making these like large areas and like the scoring multipliers, and I don't know. It's just interesting. But
I haven't seen you play Queen Domino as much, which is...
We've only played it a couple times. It's good, but it's like... it is like, it takes away some of the main strengths of King Domino, right? Which is the time and the simplicity. But it's not a bad game. It's good. And then For Sale, which is one of the gateway games that I started playing, and For Sale is awesome. It's a classic, Stefan Dora, I think, and it's just a really, really good gateway game. Any honorable mentions for you?
Not honorable mentions. I actually didn't create a list, like an ordered list, but more like good gateway games.
Okay. You can just list them randomly as we go.
Yeah, a few of mine have come up along the way. The first thing is Basic Werewolf, which is a party game, and at its most basic level, it is a pretty good introductory game too. Even though people won't know what is going on, it'll teach you some of the... It's sort of a good introduction to other more advanced social games. My other one was, ironically, for people who are coming in from the cards perspective, Teach You is actually a pretty decent gateway game. The problem is the people who play Teach You have taken it to the top level. But for people who I see people who play spades, who play hearts, and who play poker, who are interested in the hobby. And if I tell them I have a game that combines all 3, and any knowledge that you've played or anything that you've gained from those games is actually going to transfer over skills, I think it's great for that. And I mentioned Ingenious, you mentioned Stone Age, and my final one is Cloud9 / Celestia, and I'm not sure which one of those I like better at the moment.
I like Cloud9. I feel like Celestia adds a bunch of random elements and complication, but is the payoff worth it? I don't know. I just kind of like the simplicity of Cloud9.
Yeah, a lot of people like Cloud9. I like the added card management of Celestia.
Yeah.
But I will say this, that they are both very good games. So.
All right.
I also put Cloud 9.
Oh, nice.
I put Skull as
Mhm.
well. Because it's really
Oh,
simple
yeah.
and it's fun to play.
Shout out to Skull. I like Skull.
Ticket to Ride as well is a very good gateway game. It's fun and again very easy to learn, and not a long game.
It has pretty map and pretty pieces that
Yes,
can draw people.
yes, and again, people feel like they're accomplishing something by claiming routes and
Yeah.
actually putting their little trains on there.
And actually, the mechanism is really good to learn
Yeah,
too. The
it
cloud,
is,
the
it is.
Ticket to Ride drafting system is
Yeah.
incorporated into many other games. So.
I also put the game, even though it is very difficult to win, but it's very fun to play, and you have to kind of work together in order to win.
Yeah. We've only won like twice, and we've played that. Me and my family have played that game a ton.
Yeah.
It's very hard to win.
I
We
love
haven't even
that game.
tried the expansion version.
No, yeah, me neither. I also put Avalon and Werewolf.
Okay.
Those are good, fun. They are, well, Werewolf is more of a party game. Avalon is, I think, a little more difficult than Werewolf. I would
Well, the
say.
way y'all play it, because
The-
they play it every week, so they're like advanced.
It's the after party.
I'm still trying to get better at both of them, especially Avalon. But I love social deduction games. I love deduction games or mystery games. So I also put Escape, The Curse of the Temple. It's very fun. It's probably one of the few times I actually like rolling dice.
Problem with
But-
that one is that a lot of people don't like real time, but other than that,
Yeah, I can only play it a couple times. After
Yeah.
that, I'm like, okay, let's move on to something
Yeah.
else. But
I still don't think that's really an intro game because real time is rough for new players. But
Yeah.
it is easy enough.
it's
I mean,
simple,
people have it.
but it's,
and it is
Yeah,
co-op, so that's
yeah,
good.
it's
Yeah.
simple. It's co-op.
It crosses
And it's
the
fun.
line. It's fun. It's
it's fun.
simple, and a lot of people can play it. I mean,
Yeah.
it has its elements.
It would be a
It's
good
sort of
gateway
weird.
game, I think, for most people, but there's definitely a large segment of the population that it would not go well for.
Yeah. It has its embarrassing moments, right? Like if you
Yeah.
have to stand up and
Oh,
play, or if you get one of those curses where you have to put your hand on your forehead and roll with only one hand or something.
and I actually do have an honorable mention for a genre, and that genre is race games. I think the entire genre of race games is generally pretty much a very good introduction.
Do you mean race to VP or like race around a track?
Race around the track.
Oh.
All the racing games seem to be pretty good medium level introductory games. And I should have mentioned a few of them before, but like Long Shot, even Formula One, which is more complex, Magical Athlete, they're all very good
Yeah.
games.
I'm thinking about getting the new edition of Camel Up actually because it looks awesome. Like they redid the entire game, like all the components, all the artwork, and it looks really good. It's kind of like Long Shot, and we played the heck out of Long Shot.
Till we sold it.
Hey, it was worth a lot of money. It's out of print.
It was. I really wish I had a copy. Anyways.
It's always nice to make a profit off of board games. Did you have any others?
I also put Deception, Murder in Hong
yeah.
Kong,
Deception's
because it's a co-op, right? For mostly a co-op anyway, and it would be a good introductory game to say Avalon or Werewolf.
And it's better than Mysterium in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh yes.
So a lot of
I
people
agree.
love
A lot of
Mysteria,
people love Mysterium, and
especially
I mean, Mysterium will only work if you have someone that's really good playing the ghost.
yeah. And I think both those games fail on one of my most important things, which is length, because those games are long.
Deception's pretty short.
Deception is short.
Mysterium's kinda long,
Mysterium is long.
but-
Mysterium is usually over an hour, almost
Yeah.
every hour and a half.
Yeah.
Deception is usually about 45 minutes to an hour, though.
I think it's more like 30
No.
in my experience.
Especially with a new player, because they don't have the familiarity with the cards, so they actually have to get
Well,
up and physically move and look at them.
I also like move things along. Like I do that in every social deduction game. If like the people are just stuck and they're like shouting at each other, but like no progress is being made to making a decision, I'm just like, all right, we need to,
Yeah.
So it's good to have someone who's like pushing.
In my
those
experience, it's been
cases.
about 30-minute games, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, max would be 45 minutes, but that's...
But you're playing
That's a
with
little
good gamers.
No, I mean, a lot of... So, I recently brought Deception, Murder in Hong Kong, to the meetups at Cafe Express,
Mhm.
a lot of people hadn't played it, and we still were playing it in half an hour. So
All right. Is that your list?
yeah, I think so.
So you don't have a top three. So it's just me and her.
I just threw them all together, but I would definitely put Ticket to Ride up there because it introduces them to different how do you say, like building and
you probably haven't played this, but I actually think Transamerica is a better gateway game.
yeah,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
not played it.
And I think Transamerica is more interesting to me personally. I know Pandemic is not Pandemic. Ticket to Ride is way more popular, but to me, I like Transamerica better. You probably should play with Vexation though, because that makes it a lot more interesting.
I mean,
Okay.
it's basically you can't get it without Vexation anymore.
Oh, yeah.
It gets reprinted with Vex. It has an expansion. No one even knows about it unless they have been playing it for like 10 or 11 years because it's been that long since it has not been packaged with it.
Nice.
Anyways,
I also I put Skull kind of at the top of my list as well, just because
I can't believe I forgot about
it's
Skulls.
quick,
Skull's a
it's
great
fun.
gateway game, yeah.
Everyone can pick it up fairly easily.
you social
Yeah.
deduction people.
Which actually reminds me, I probably should also mention Liar's Dice. I think Liar's Dice is also a good gateway game. Like, I've gotten some non-gamers that got really into Liar's Dice, so also good. All right, let's do top three. My number three. Oh, I actually did two lists.
Mhm.
I did my personal favorites and what I actually think is the better gateway for actually getting gamers in, but that are not the games I necessarily enjoy the most.
Okay.
So my number three gateway game is kind of a split. I put the game / Hanabi because they're both like hidden information, like you can't share, you can't tell people what to do basically, which solves the alpha gaming problem for new players. And both the games are very simple,
Although
and they're both co-ops.
Hanabi. I don't know that I would teach it to newbies just because
I would. Some
They're-
people love stress.
I've realized with Hanabi that people have very particular ways of playing it, right?
Mhm.
So depending who you play Hanabi with, they're like, no. If it's a 5, you're going to have to put it all the way down this way. And if it's this color, then you have to like tilt it at this angle.
Yeah.
And people will get really upset if you don't listen to them because that's how they've always played.
That's the
and if
problem.
you do something different, they don't understand
That's the
what
problem with
you
those
are playing.
people. It's not a problem with Hanabi. Hanabi's fine. It's a great gateway game. I've actually had a lot of success teaching Hanabi to new players.
Earthquake.
It's actually Hanabi is actually quite fun. But the other small issue I have with it is that it's a really difficult game. Some people might find that it's just impossible to win, even as a co-op. But it's a good challenge. I like challenges. It's just not everybody does, right? I mean, depends.
Yeah. So I think the game and Hanabi both very hard games to win
Yes,
actually,
very.
but I still think they're really good gateway
Yeah.
games. I've had a lot of success with them. But my third favorite is High Society, which is a auction game, a very light auction game. Is it Reiner Knizia? It might be.
It is Reiner Knizia,
Yeah.
yes.
And it's my favorite. It might be my favorite Knizia, or it's close. Probably like Samurai a little bit better, but yeah, High Society is just a great game for like tension and also it has this cool mechanic where like whoever spends the most money in the auctions is eliminated from play, and new players have never probably played with a mechanic like that in a game. So yeah, I think it's really good. Your number three, Charles?
My number three is actually going to be one I discovered at last year's BGG Con, which is Pyramid Poker.
Oh, I still haven't played this.
I just don't play this game. It's Jenga mixed with Texas Hold'em. So you're basically trying to come up with the best 5-player poker hand. You have blocks, which are all 52 cards and 2 jokers. You stack them up, and then when you pull them off, you put those into 1 of 3 poker hands. And the best, so each, you and your opponent, it's a 2-player game, will each have 3 poker hands at the end of the game, and whoever wins the best 2 out of 3 heads up in those poker games wins the game. It never ties. It's never longer than 15 minutes. Usually it's closer to 10 minutes. So it's just a great game, and you can pull everyone in from poker because it has this Jenga element. It usually attracts a lot of people as well, and super easy to teach.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd like to try it. My number 2, which I think is the second best gateway game, is Carcassonne. I know I already said Isle of Skye is better. That's probably for me personally. But, Carcassonne has the staying power, and people love building that map in the middle. They love the way the pieces look. It's a very simple game. So, it really draws a lot of people in, and you don't have a ton of decisions to make because you just draw a tile and you play it, right? Although playing with gamers, I would recommend drawing 3, like having a hand of 3 tiles makes it more strategic. But with new players, you can just draw a tile, play it.
And I think Alhambra would also fit in that same area. We didn't mention it, but I'm like, oh yeah, this game is perfect. People love the tiles. It's usually the best. It usually comes up with Carcassonne as well. So there you go.
But my second favorite gateway game is Biblios. It's just a very short filler game, but I love the heck out of that game. We've played it a ton. I've owned it for a really long time, and I just like it for a short kind of gateway game. And I've taught it to non-gamers. It's not the most exciting game, so that's why I didn't put it on the best gateway games list. But to me, I find it super interesting.
Wait, monks working in the library is not exciting to you? They make ink.
Crazy, I know. Yeah. What's your second?
My number 2 is a Charles Chivik game, which is Red 7.
Oh yeah, good game.
So you get 49 cards, numbered 1 through 7, in 7 different colors, and you go for the highest card. Add on rules as you want, but basically it's a game where you're just at the end of the turn, you're trying to be winning whatever the current rule conditions, and there are 7 different rule conditions for each color. This game is very easy to teach. It has modular add-on rules that make it more complicated, so you can teach someone how to play games with the basic rules, and then I always feel like it's good to have iterative upgrades. And the first game you teach them might take 5 or 10 minutes. The next game, add-on rule, takes 15. The next game after that makes 20, and it's actually a full out-fledged, like, serious strategic game. And you've taught them that while you've been learning with them. Plus, it plays up to 4. So there you go.
Nice. My number 1, as far as the people's choice, is, by sales numbers, Settlers of Catan. And it is the game that got me into gaming, so it's hard for me to argue with it. At the same time, it commits a lot of the sins that we talked about earlier for bad gateway games. It's long. It's not the simplest game. It's mean. It has social interaction in the form of trading, and you can get locked out of the trading, which, again, can make the player feel bad. It's not the most strategic game. You can just have like a run of good numbers and dominate. It has a lot of problems, and yet it has the staying power. It's still super popular. It still sells tons of copies. I don't know what it is, but apparently it's a good gateway game.
Now, I will counter this with the fact that all those problems are addressed and corrected in the licensed Catan games. Yeah. So if you play Star Trek Catan or Game of Thrones Catan, you will find yourself ironically having a much better game and better game experience than the regular Catan out of the box. Just because it adds in some player power, so that really fixes a number of things that have plagues basic Catan. So.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm still calling it Settlers of Catan. I don't care what they change it. Like, if you're gonna drop one of the names, you drop Catan. You don't drop Settlers. Like the word that tells you what the game is, and
Hey man, Catan dice. It's really good.
Terrible. My personal favorite gateway is Samurai, which is another Knizia game. It's a super easy rule set. Anyone can learn it. It is an abstract game, but the strategic decisions, I think, are like super interesting. And as you'll notice, my favorite list tends to be like more strategic-minded people. So like, to use these games as gateway games, you have to be playing with like people who are interested in strategy. But for those types of people, I think the ones on my favorite list would be really good choices.
My number 1 gateway game is Parade.
Oh.
It's a very nice
Not
game.
Guillotine?
Oh, Guillotine. of a time back. Parade is an Alice in Wonderland game. You basically are sort of like lining up, trying to collect cards and colors and have the lowest number. It is a joy to teach. It plays 6 players, which is also good for a gateway game. You have multiple people, and the newest versions, even the old versions, have very good art and very easy to teach. It's a good filler. You can play the game to select the next game while you're playing Parade, and it just by the time people are there, it's over. So.
Excellent. All right.
And of course, pandemic. Whatever.
Sure. Why not? Pandemic. Great gateway game. Hashtag eternally bored.
It,
All right.
it works.
You heard it here first. No.
That was heard of.
If it works, it works.
It works.
Right? I can't argue with that. I don't like Ticket to Ride either, but who am I? I'm just a person. All right. So new games. Since we haven't recorded in 4 months, I have like 50 games on my list, and Charles probably also has like 50 games.
I have a lot of games, but we're just gonna go through your list this time. So go ahead.
All right. I'm gonna just lightning around this then. Escape the Room, great escape game. Unlock, also great escape room game.
Magic Maze.
Magic
a room
Maze.
without a maze where you can escape it. No.
Magic Maze is a co-op game where you're trying to find a way through a maze. The trick of it is each person can only go in certain directions. So you're all like moving these characters in a maze, but like you can only move the characters to the right, and also you can't talk except at certain like intervals. So
that game was actually really, really fun.
Yeah.
I feel like you keep on running hands with people because you're supposed to keep your hands in front of you, right? So reaching across the board, because I felt like I really wanted to loom while we were playing it, but
it's one of those games that can test friendships though, because you can get really upset at people when you're like, this move is so obvious, and you can't scream at them, so you're just like holding this anger inside, and so like the tension just builds, and by the end of the game, if y'all lose, you're just like frustrated. But if you win, it's a great feeling of success. Let's see what else. Dexcape, Test Time, also a good gateway game. Escape the Room game. PAX Premier, first edition. The second edition Kickstarter just ended. I would definitely check it out. It's a very interesting game. I don't feel like I'm gonna buy it because we have a friend that has a copy, but it is good. It is a not game for the faint of heart. There's like direct attacks. You can destroy people's tableaus and all kinds of stuff. But if you like interesting card interaction and you don't mind like direct attacks, definitely check out PAX Premier.
That
You
one
know
it takes some time to also understand.
Oh yeah, it's super complex. But it's a who's that guy who did that space game High Frontier? It's that guy.
Alien Frontiers?
No, High Frontier.
High Frontier.
The one about launching the rockets into space. The guy is a former rocket scientist or like rocket engineer, but I forget his name. Baron Park. I'm actually getting my copy of Baron Park because apparently they sold out and I'm getting a profit from it. It's good. It's like multiplayer patchwork. You're dealing with Tetris shapes, and it's good. Here's my problem with Baron Park. The setup takes as long as the game. Like literally setting up, putting all the tiles in the right position on the tableau takes just as long as like playing the dang game. So that's a cardinal sin in my opinion.
I also feel like Zularetto in that game scratched like literally the same itch for me. Right?
Well, Zularetto's a better game.
Oh god.
But you don't do polyominoes.
No, you don't do that in Zularetto. But I feel like they're just scratching the same itch. It's like if I was doing a theme night, I put those two games there together.
Zoo theme night. Play Fauna too. All right, Queen Domino. I already talked about it. Let's see. Metropolis. Played it too long ago to remember. I think I liked it though. Green Deal. That's a bad game. Don't get that game.
Wait a minute. Green Deal?
Yeah. You like Green Deal?
No, I like Clans of Caledonia.
Oh, okay.
Which takes the best parts of Green Deal and that mixes them with Tiramisu.
Get the guy's second game, Clans of Caledonia.
The market is really good in Green Deal, but the presentation of the game is about as boring as you can get, right?
Yeah. Sidereal Confluence. We'll probably talk about that again when we get to our best of 2018 list, but really cool trading game, heavy trading game, but check it out. With super asymmetrical factions, also a thing I love. Near and Far,
Laukat.
None of his games grab me. Like, I keep trying to like his games, and every time I'm like, because I love his art. Like, it's nothing against the art. I love the art. But I haven't played a single one of his games that grabbed me, like, in the least.
And he has a super...
How did you play that game, though? Because there's multiple ways to play it, right? There's campaign mode, there's...
we just did, like, the single playthroughs on 2 different maps. The campaign mode is probably better, but, like, I didn't like the core mechanisms enough to, like, attempt to play the campaign.
My thing with Laukat is I always feel like when I play one of his games, he just needs a fine-tuner. I think he's really good with creating the ideas. I think his art is great. I just think, and I know he has a group of testers. I just think you need someone to give him hard criticism to
Yeah.
try to, just
Make it
fine-tune
interesting
it. Make
somehow.
it interesting, yeah. So,
Besides the art is super interesting.
but he's a really good designer, though.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're talking about, like, I want your games to be great, and I feel like you're
They're on the precipice.
Almost
you're on the
there,
you're
yeah.
almost there. I
Almost
just
there.
feel like I'm just not sure what it is, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Clank in Space, it's good. It's better than Clank, in my opinion, because it has a modular board. But now, actually, regular Clank has like 6 or 8 maps. So, maybe.
Strategize, man.
Yeah.
Go with the what is it? Clash of Clans? No. The one where they're always playing the same map. Oh, League of Legends. Yes.
Lisboa, a really good Lacerda game. I
Always
like it.
that.
I don't like a lot of his games, but I like that one. Well, I should rephrase. I like all of his games. I don't love
Any of them.
Like any of them, but Lisboa is the closest to love, except for Vinhos. That is my favorite Lacerda game, and I have the deluxe edition now, and it's awesome. So try to get a copy of that if you can.
Combine Drivers Edition comes out next month. So
I haven't tried the Vinhos expansions yet, though, so I don't know. Have you played Vinhos yet?
once or twice. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Maybe once. Yeah.
Pioneer Days, really cool dice rolling game from TMG. Really cool theme. It's very simple. It's almost a Gateway game, except there's a ton of asymmetrical powers in it, so maybe it's like the next step from Gateway, but it's really cool. Riverboat is a game that came out pretty recently and is very interesting. It's but I'm not sure if it can handle repeated plays. Like, I played it 3 times. We played it twice in one night. It was that good. But it's like one of those games where I don't know if the replayability is there, because after the 3rd time I played it, I was like, is there much more to explore in this game? And that I don't know. Trade on the Tigris is another trading game. This is from TMG. It's lighter. It's actually also a lying game, whereas like in Sidereal Confluence, all the deals are binding and you have to trade what you're saying. In Trade on the Tigris, you can hand someone a card and say that it's something, but it can be something else. So it has
Oh, really? You get a lot of people in their face?
lying mixed with trading. Yeah.
Oh, God. It's a Trey Chambers love game right there.
I like the game. I can never get it to the table because it has 2 things my group hates: trading. It's hard enough for me to get them to play Sidereal Confluence, and
Deceit
mixed together.
I'm a lawful good guy.
Yeah. So that's never getting to the table, but it's a really cool game. Check it out. Then we have Brass. I got my Kickstarter in. I got Brass Lancashire and Brass Birmingham. They're both awesome. I mean, I'm an Age of Industry guy. I think it's a superior system. Martin Wallace also thinks so. But I think Brass is still a really good game, and honestly, the pieces are so good that I'll sometimes play it over Age of Industry, even though I think Age of Industry is a better game. But the new Kickstarter for Brass is just amazing, and the new version in Birmingham is also cool. Actually, Birmingham is very similar to Age of Industry. Like, I think they took some ideas from Age of Industry and put them into Brass Birmingham. Sprawlopolis is a solo game. It's just a deck of cards where you build a city and you're trying to achieve certain goals. It's a co-op game. You can play solo or co-op game. You can play with other people and you're building the city together, trying to meet the goals and meeting a certain amount of points. It's a very cool, like, light 15-minute filler game. Pantone is a party game. It's really cool. It's like Pictionary with cards. That's literally it. The cards have certain colors. You can build pictures with them. You try to get people to guess. That's the game. It's very good, though.
That was fun, yeah.
Yeah. Root. We'll probably have to come back to Root on different
We'll have to come
episode
back.
after I play it a few more times.
Oh,
Like,
no.
it is it's a really good game, but it has some glaring issues that keep cropping up, and maybe, if you've seen Shut Up and Sit Down's review, which is like a positive review, but then they list like 5 things they don't like about it, and they're probably right about those, but we'll talk more about it in a future episode. And then Detective, which I've been playing with Elisa, which is basically like, this is Detective, a modern crime board game by the Imperial Sellers guy. Oh, I forgot his name. But he's a really great designer, and he likes Argent.
Ignacy
Yeah. Trevicek.
Trevicek. Ignacy.
Yeah. He did a great job. Like, I'm really digging this game. I love Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. This is like that with a little more structure, whereas like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is like, here's a book, read it and figure out this case. Whereas this game, you have like hours in the day and you spend the hours to do certain things in game. So it does have it's more of a game than Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Yeah. It has a really cool integrated website too, and you can look things up on the internet to help you. It has historical ties, so it's like historical fiction. It's just super, super good. I do have some problems with the game. Like the scoring is a little off. Like we like answered all of the questions except one. We've done 4 cases and we missed 1 question so far. But each time we get knocked a bunch of points because we don't find the evidence. I mean, clearly we're finding evidence to solve the case because we're not missing any questions. But we're losing tons of points and we don't know why. We're just not choosing to go to the right cards, I guess. I don't know. It's really weird.
That's
so
what
I don't.
It seems like.
Yeah.
You're not finding you're finding all the ancillary evidence and not the main wonder.
So we're just using our logic to figure it out, and it's going well. But they're docking us points because we're not going to the right cards, and that just seems, convoluted to me. But it's a really awesome game, so I highly recommend it, especially if you like Sherlock Holmes and you just like mysteries in general. Like, it's like an interactive story you're playing with friends, and you feel like you're really a detective. So we actually have a huge mind map on our wall in our apartment. It's amazing. Like, it literally is a whole wall of just Post-it notes.
Wall of Post-its.
Yeah. And this is why we're not missing questions, because we are treating it like a real job.
Because UX, UI designers have to have the visual, visuals.
Yeah. And the mind map is super helpful. Like, I didn't think it was going to be that helpful, but, like, when we get to the end of the case and we're answering the questions, like, it's so awesome to have everything just planned out. So I highly recommend doing that if you play that game. Yeah. And that's it. I got through them all. So I don't know what I'm going to talk about next episode. I guess we'll go through your list.
Go through my list next episode, Trey. You know how it goes. I'll have some games, and we'll be going from there. Excellent, excellent. And hopefully we'll get some played this week. I mean, eventually I'll have a Terraforming Mars expansion to talk about again.
All right.
But,
and I think we're also going to have Lisa back next time, so maybe we can talk about your recently played games as well. All right, well, that's it. That'll do it for this episode. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We're on YouTube and Twitter at Eternally Bored, no underscore, one word, Eternally Bored, as in board games. And our website is www.eternallybored.com. Until next time,
we're eternally bored,
so you don't have to be. Bye.
Get out of here.
Okay, someone has to shut the camera off.
God.